So we're going to transition to my next guest, Ian from Spiritual Gangster. That's what I call him. He's just my man, Ian. So, Ian, can you hear me okay, bud?
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you. So we had to call an audible. I was kind of had a freak out moment the other day, but I thought, after I calmed down, I realized, life happens and we have technology. So we're going to sit here and talk about technology. If Ian couldn't be live in studio, we could zoom him in. That's the power of technology. So I appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, tell us where you're at too, bro. Where are you at exactly?
I'm in Kelowna, Canada, heli skiing. Today I took the day off to be with you guys. But
oh man, I appreciate that. Well, let me give you a little context here. So Ian is a co-founder of Spiritual Gangster. He's going to tell the story of Spiritual Gangster. I met Ian through mutual friends several years ago. Went into his office at the time, and it was a pretty cool experience, kind of a Zen experience. Just the way he lives his life. He's very spiritual, meditation. I mean, the way his morning habits. He can talk about some of that stuff in a minute. But I just knew, like in the first 5 minutes, the connection that I had with him, not just on the spiritual level, but entrepreneurship and the belief system and the people that we hang around. And then fast forward, lo and behold, our kids actually go to school together. So I get to see Ian at pickup and basketball games and probably see each other more than we want to sometimes. But that's good. We get to force each other to talk a little business on football fields every once in a while. So I wanted to, Ian, we're going to punt the same question to you. I asked Henry the question. I asked Patrick the question. I love the story, and I don't think enough people know about it enough. I actually went and Googled your name a couple days ago, which I know the story, but I wanted to see what was out there in the public domain. This whole concept of spiritual gangster, how the hell did that come about? You got to tell us that story, and then tell us what any color to the story of what Spiritual Gangster was when you founded it.
Well, yeah, thank you. First of all, it's always great to be with you, Michael, whether it's a flag football or basketball, and now being there with your audience and getting to share our story.
Yeah.
So, my background, I grew up in Detroit, and then I became an entertainment lawyer in LA. And during that time, I got really addicted to yoga, and I was watching yoga boom. And I ended up quitting my entertainment law job, moving to Arizona and opening a chain of yoga studios. About 10 years ago, and at that time I was traveling all over the world, and I was teaching yoga to hip hop rap music. So one time during class, I would play like Tupac or Biggie Small or stuff like Stevie Wonder and stuff with a really big beat so I could get the entire room like a school of fish on the same page. It was really an amazing experience. And a friend of mine came up to me after class one time. She said, "You're like a gangster, a spiritual gangster." And we had some boutiques in our yoga studio. We were sort of ahead of the curve there. We're like, fitness boutiques didn't really have clothing. So we started, my wife, Vanessa, as well, she ran our boutique, and we started making some t-shirts that said Spiritual Gangster, and we started selling them in our yoga studios. About 10 years ago, I sold the yoga business to Lifetime Fitness, which is now a publicly traded fitness company. And Spiritual Gangster was really sort of an expensive hobby. What we realized is we loved what yoga did. We loved how it opened us up. We loved the community we created. We wanted to find a way to take those vibes and that community and build it globally. So Spiritual Gangster for the first kind of year and a half was more of an expensive hobby. My wife we knew nothing, first of all, about the fashion business. I'd never been in retail. It was just, we wanted to find this touch point to bring this energy and these vibes and get them out behind the four walls of the yoga studio. So it started, we'd buy blanks. We were storing them in our garage or our house. Our kids were tagging the shirts, and it was very much an expensive hobby. And then probably about a year after selling the yoga business, we said, okay, let's go all in on Spiritual Gangster. We really have something here. We had early accounts from like Equinox who put us in Bloomingdale's in all their windows early on in New York City. And it was just something that the more that we tried to close it down in the beginning, we literally, Vanessa and I tried to shut down Spiritual Gangster 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times, when we were having a baby or anything else. And it just had something that had a life of its own and wanted to continue. So then we really had to figure out, okay, if this is going to be a business, how do we scale it and grow it, and how do we learn? And, there's so many challenges along the way. And I mean, Henry's got just an amazing story about my dad used to tell me, you'll figure it out, right? So you just got to keep coming at it. Sometimes it takes 20 times, sometimes it takes 100, but you know where you want to go and you set the direction, and it's all about pivoting and being open. But a lot of Spiritual Gangster for us I always tell people it's a movement disguised as a clothing company. and it's about making people feel better, and it's about making people, it's almost like superhero clothes for adults. So I've had more people tell me, you're like, I was struggling with cancer and I wore this every day and it helped me. I wore my warrior shirt, or I wear my spiritual gangster shirt when it's really important to go, when I go, meet. It allows people to be their best selves. And, I'm a big believer of, it's like, it always starts with you, right? And the more you can be positive, the more energy you can have, the easier everything else becomes. So I think that Spiritual Gangster for us is really, giving positive messaging. And I know that we live in a world of negative messaging. And for me, it's all about keeping it positive and sharing good vibes and sharing that energy, and then finding our tribe around the world, because there's spiritual gangsters all over the world. They just don't know it yet.
Right.
And there are these pockets of just like amazing, wonderful people doing great things. And it's not just about yoga. It's people doing great things in all aspects of their lives. And so that's really sort of how we got to Spiritual Gangster.
So one thing, so I have my gear too. I wear your gear, and when I travel, especially in other parts of the country, and I know because we're West Coast, people may know more about the brand maybe on the West Coast than other parts of the country. So every once in a while, I'll be in an airport and someone goes, "Hey, that's a really cool shirt. Where'd you get it from?" But I want you to understand. I want you to explain that Spiritual Gangster isn't just selling T-shirts anymore. This is like a full-blown conglomeration. Can you brag on the company a little bit about how many stores you're in? What's your reach? I mean, because this is not about T-shirts. This is the movement.
It's a movement, and we sell, first of all, half of our business is online, and that's a real focus. How can we go more online? And that's, been trending in that direction over the last year and a half. But we're in probably 2,500 stores. We're in all the majors. We're in every fitness chain you can imagine, Peloton, Equinox, Core Power Yoga, Pure Bar. But we when we're on a ton of resorts, but we also like to be in places where people are doing things that are resonating with the Spiritual Gangster vibe, taking care of themselves, meditating, doing fitness, doing athletics, doing things that make themselves feel better, or you're on this great vacation with your wife and you go into the spa and you see a Spiritual Gangster, and then every time it reminds you of your great trip. So, we have a lot of different distribution points. But to us, it's also, we really want to drive more of it online, because then you can really communicate more with your, raving fans, what we call them, or clients. And I think Patrick hit on a lot of great things. There's so many things now that you can share through the digital world we live in and are in that you couldn't do 5 or 10 years ago. So that's really where our focus is. How do we get this message across, and how do we share our vibes and our positivity with the entire world? And the tagline for Spiritual Gangster is raise your vibration. It's not only individually, but raise the vibration of the planet, and that's really what it's all about for us. How do we leave this world a better place than we found it? And how do we make a positive impact? One of the things I'm really proud of, we don't share with a lot of people, is, the idea of we find karmic business partners. So it's like, one of the things since the beginning, for every Spiritual Gangster shirt ever sold online, we do a meal for Feeding America. Now we've done over 15 million meals. I've been on the board of Make-A-Wish, and we do a lot of stuff sponsoring kids with Make-A-Wish. And the stories that have come back to me are just incredible. So, I think that you can really have an impact. And, in the beginning, we didn't want to talk about that, or we just kind of did it because that's who we are. But now I think we're being more open to share some of the stuff where we kind of kept behind the curtain before.
That's great. That's great. So let's switch it up to what the challenges, the things that you may have faced, whether the company or yourself, whatever you're willing to share, how personal and really you want to get. But I love asking entrepreneurs the biggest challenge they had to overcome, whether it's business or otherwise.
I think, for business, it's been always a series of challenges. It's like, your life's a never ending mountain, right? You're always climbing it. And as you want to go, you want to figure out, like, how do I keep going? And there's a lot of times you get great momentum, and other times you sort of stall out. Like I said before, we knew nothing about this business. So in the beginning, we were just making it up as we went along, and some things actually helped us out, because we didn't sort of do what everybody else was doing. But I think the biggest challenges for us is at every level, there's something different you need to do to learn. From 0 to $1 million, from $1 million to $5 million, from $5 million to $10 million, from $10 million to $20 million. Usually what gets you on the step up the other mountain is not what's going to take you to the next step. So really learning and growing and evolving, it's almost like raising a child owning a business. So it's like, you have an adolescence period. So it's always and being able to interact. And for me, it's been about leadership, finding the right people, and really, in the beginning, people would tell us, even when we started with like, no one's ever going to buy something with the word gangster. And that's why I loved Henry's message about gangster, because to me, we're a gang for good, and it's about positivity, right? And it's about it's about hustle, and it's figuring out how to make it work. But I mean, more people told me, oh, Bloomingdale's will never sell anything with the word gangster. And these are people working for us. And, so you have to really not set these false ceilings on yourself or limiting beliefs, and really believe in it. And I think, one of the biggest reasons why Spiritual Gangster has been so successful is because we believed in what it can be and the difference it can make. And we always focused on what it can become, as much as, like Tony Robbins says, work on the business you're in and work on the business you want to be in. So how do you always keep your eye on both and then bridge the gap and figuring out what you need? Like, I think life's about challenges, and it's about, overcoming and growing, and it can be fun. People, sometimes they get discouraged, but like part of the game is figuring things out. And I think that's really a beautiful thing, to have a laboratory that's making a difference for positivity and sharing with the world. And you're also evolving personally and professionally as you go.
That's great. Well, one of the things one of my favorite aspects of what I do is connecting people. Obviously, that's what we're doing here today. I mean, the three individuals I brought on didn't know each other from anybody until I brought us all together. And this is, the beginning of something awesome. But I want you, and I'm going to let you speak on this one, bud. Give us a tease. What are you working on? I know that people are always asking, what's that guy up to other than Spiritual Gangster? He's got to have something up his sleeve. He's an entrepreneur. He's always thinking. So what can you share with us?
So, one of the things I've been working on, I started writing a book in March, and I'm almost finished with it. And it's really, I based it one of my favorite books is The Alchemist. So it's sort of fictional story with messages. And so that's been fantastic. It's been taking a lot of my time and bandwidth. And then I'm also very into health and wellness and vitality, and, creating experiences for people to go and enjoy and evolve. And so that's been like the biggest use of my time. And I also, for us, is really, really fueling Spiritual Gangsters growth and getting the right team in there, and, getting all the resources so they work together. But I would say, I'm working on me now as much as anything. And I think it always starts with you. And, we were talking a little bit, and I think that the more energy I can come with, and the healthier I can be, and the more I can learn, and the more I can evolve, then whatever I'm doing becomes a lot easier. Like, I don't really focus on the problem. I'm really focusing on myself and my energy, and installing habits for me to be better, to be helpful, and really be a contribution. I'm wired for contribution. So I love being able to help people achieve what they want to achieve, or be healthier, or be wealthier, or whatever they want more of in their life. Love it.
So, hey, give us a glimpse of, I know you're big on morning routines. I know you're big on this, and there's a lot of books on that, right? Whether successful people do before breakfast. I mean, there's a lot of incredible books on it. Give us a little glimpse of the life of Ian in the morning. What's your routine, man? Because success habits are a big part of creating a great story as we go into 22.
100%. So, I think to me, it really sets up my day and my entire life and to win. So a couple things I do, I have 3 journals. I started with a 5-minute journal. I've been doing that now. My mother passed away almost 4 years ago. And the day she passed away, I started journaling. And then after that, I keep 2 separate journals. One is a goals journal. So I write every morning what I want to have happen in the day. Have an amazing call with Michael and Henry and Patrick, share wisdom with people, get people jazzed about the new year. And it always happens better than I want. But it's also important. I don't just journal in like, hey, I journal. I believe life is a platform. So you want to have relationships. You want to have wealth and finances. You want to have the right attitude. You want to be creative. You want to have serendipity and synchronicity. You want to be in the flow and in the zone. So I write goals in each of these areas. So, you see people who have no health and tons of wealth, or the other way around, or no relationships. I believe you want to have an equally balanced platform that rises. So maybe sometimes your business is going great and you're focused on your business, but now my relationship needs some more focus. So really goaling in each of those areas. And then I also see, how am I doing in those areas? And my second journal is, I write throughout the day of my wins. So, Henry nailed a thing. It's like, we're wired, right? So you want to basically change your neural pathways. So I only write about the good things that happen. got to go hella skiing with my best friend. I got to do this call with you guys. My son's loving his basketball team. You know, all these wins that are great. I'm writing only those things down. So I'm reinforcing those neural pathways versus focusing on, you know, whatever else. And now I'm really wired to, you know, wherever I go, someone's there to help me. They like almost appear out of nowhere because I say I create friends everywhere I go. So it's like I'm at the airport or I'm at the hotel but people show up out of nowhere to help me out to get what I want. And now I rely on that. And then every morning, you know, this morning I did half an hour of Wim Hof breathing. I'm a big fan of Wim Hof. I've interviewed him before, spent some time with him. I do a meditation. And then I did like 45 minutes of physical exercises that I've been doing. But every day I set the platform with that. Because what happens is, you know, there's sort of two things going on. There's your energy and what you're bringing in the world. And there's sort of like this default, you know, frequency that's applying to everything. And that's going on even when you're sleeping. You know, so you have to wake up, and most people wake up and they go to their cell phone or they go to social media or whatever. For me, it's like, if I'm going to surf the waves of life, and this is the best analogy, life is like surfing. You got to get out there. So you got to learn how to and you have to have a board, and the board is my energy. So the more energy platform that I can build, the easier I'm going to be able to surf all the waves of my life. And also too, it takes some effort to get out there and be in the right position. But if you put the work in early, then you can ride the waves where other people are just getting fucking pummeled by the waves. So it's just a different deal. But I do think that for me, that's the most important part of my life is setting up that morning ritual and routine and staying connected with that.
I love it. I love it. All right, man, before I let you go, you got to give us your takeaways for next year here. 2022, we're setting goals for everybody out there. You got life skills, success strategies, I call them. You got a couple takeaways for our audience. What would you say?
I think, you know, I'm going to say a couple things. I would say one line I like is your issues are in your tissues, right? So you need to be able to get that stuff out of your body. Like the thinking, like Henry's talking about, will manifest into the physical body, right? So it's important that you get your mind right. And then also to get your body right. Because if you're not physically in great shape and have energy, everything's harder or challenging. So you're going to make your whole life easier if you focus on yourself and just set up these simple wins. Maybe I'm going to walk 10 minutes a day, or I'm going to do 10 push-ups. You know, I'm a big believer. I have long goals, 10-year goals, and I have 1-year goals. And I think most people totally underestimate what they can do in 10 years, but they also overestimate what they can do in 1 year, and then they burn out. Like I'm not going to say I'm going to run a marathon this year, right? But if I want to run a mile, great. In 10 years, I could run a marathon if I was interested in. But really being realistic and doing things so you can gather momentum with those goals. And you know, another thing that I would share with is one of my, I would say, keys to success is being aware of synchronicities, coincidences, and serendipity. They're all around us. The universe is always communicating with us. And the more open we can be and tuned in, like, you know, alert, aware, accurate, seeing what's happening in reality, the more clues we can pick up on. And if you read on most people's success stories, you know, one, they have hustle like Henry and they're wanting to make it happen, but they have a plan. Then they show up and someone sitting next to them ends up being the guy who makes the movie for them or the guy who gives them the job. So just being aware of and showing up and being present, I think that's a real key. And being aware of coincidences, serendipities, and synchronicities, because they're really feedback from your environment of what's happening.
That's so true. I remember one time, I'm a big believer in that. And when I was learning this technology, this belief of attraction, I was so in tune. Like I would wake up every day, like on a business trip, and I would literally say to myself, who am I going to sit next to on the airplane? Because something's going to happen. Someone's coming into my life today, somehow, some way, but I have to pay attention. But if I don't, you know how it is. Most people just kind of walk around life with their head down. They're not paying attention to what's around them. And a lot of times the power is already within, or it's already in your network, or it's people you know, but you don't even have your head up to see it.
Well, and I think too, the other thing too is like, you know, I think it's an Einstein quote, but it's like, the biggest thing that you have to choose is it a friendly universe or is it an unfriendly universe? And if you realize like everything here is working for me, you know, and it's conspiring to have my dreams happen and what I want. So how can I show up and then be present and alert and aware and tuned in enough to really recognize all the abundance that's around me and all these miracles that want to happen in my life?
I love it. Ian, thanks so much for taking the time, man. I know you're probably
you.
freezing your butt off up there, man. Have some fun. Thanks for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here in a minute. We'll see you this week, bud. I'll see you at school.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Sounds good. Thanks, bud.